Hey, good afternoon. I will now call this Police Services Board meeting to order on March 5th, 2024 at 1:02 p.m. We'll start with a land acknowledgement statement. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. And before we move on to approval of the agenda, we are going to have a motion to waive the procedural bylaw and only require a mover for all motions today, not a seconder as well. Could I have a mover? Thank you. All in favor? I'll vote today too. Approval of the agenda or additions to the agenda. The recommendation is the agenda be approved as presented if there are no additions. Seeing any additions, so could I have a mover, please? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? Would it seem silly if we just didn't do all that and just took it as being done? Or do we actually have to do Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, one may be declared at any time throughout the meeting if it should arise. For minutes of previous meetings, the January 9th, 2024, the recommendation is that the minutes of the Police Services Board meeting held on January 9th, 2024 be adopted. I have a mover, please. Any discussion? Call the vote. All in favor? It is carried. We have no delegations or public question period today, but in future, I'm not even going to go there because this board should be dissolved. So there should. So telling everybody how to do a delegation at this board, though, when we're not supposed to exist after the 1st of April.
If I may, through your chair, Mayor Carlton, you'll note that at the end of your agenda, you have a verbal update from me as to the status of the new joint board structure. While the new legislation will be proclaimed on April 1st, that timeline has not changed. I am unsure that the new board will actually be in place, meaning the provincial appointees will likely remain outstanding at that time. So it has been my recommendation to the collective communities to keep their police services boards intact until we have confirmation that the board will be ready to go at that April deadline.
Okay, so we could potentially have future meetings then. Okay, so I will read this information then for anybody that might wish to delegate to the board. So any person who wishes to appear before the board regarding a matter within the board's jurisdiction may make written application to the clerk by the Thursday preceding the meeting they wish to speak at. To register, go to georgianbluffs.ca/delegations or call the clerk's office at 519-376-2729, extension 603. For correspondence is the next item. Crime Stoppers of Greybury's October to December 2023 Coordinators Program Report. Are there any comments or questions on that one? So we're simply receiving that one for information. We don't need a mover on that. The next item is Crime Stoppers of Grey Bruce Winter 2024 Tipster Magazine. Does any member wish to comment on this one? Yeah, we'll receive for information. And the next item is the Detachment Commander's Report. And the recommendation is that the Detachment Commander's Report for the 2023 year end be received for information. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you. And I will turn it over to Operations Manager Barfoot to give us a report there.
Thank you. Inspector Richardson, he sends his regrets today. He's unable to make it. He's at our Western Region headquarters today, so I am here on his behalf and happy to present to you. So on the second page of his report, in his preamble there, he kind of touches on the things that I'm going to touch on today, including our increase in traffic stops and enforcement action, which led to a great reduction in our fatal motor vehicle collisions. I'm going to speak about our community street crime unit and the great work they've done. Our MCERT team, which has been a great success. It's been in place for over a year now. So I'll speak to that a little bit later, but we did try to get more funding for that through a grant. We were unsuccessful, but we're going to continue to work towards other possibilities to get more funding for this great program. And then also our great auxiliary unit that done some wonderful work for us this year. Our crime unit, they investigated or were assisting in over 265 benchmark occurrences last year. It included 3 separate homicides for the city of Owen Sound, which they assisted in. Some of the other notable investigations they were involved in included the Dundalk Credit Union robbery, which has also been linked to several other credit union robberies across Southern Ontario. And one of our local detective constables has been assigned as part of that multi-jurisdictional investigation team. So again, not in your area, but the rural credit unions, it could happen anywhere. So they're involved in that. There was a Saugeen First Nation robbery, which resulted in the arrest of 2 Toronto and Waterloo men. And they seized firearm as well as drugs suspected to be cocaine and fentanyl. And we all know that these traffickers that are coming from the cities are distributing drugs in all of our communities. There's also a large multinational fraud investigation currently underway that's including our crime unit, the OPP Crypto Cyber Crime Unit, and the FBI regarding a suspect group within Grey County. And one of our detectives is assigned to that. We had a pedestrian motor vehicle fatality that was actually deemed a criminal act, so was investigated by our Criminal Investigation Bureau. And after their investigation, it led to a charge of dangerous drive causing death. There's also an arson investigation that 2 detective constables were assigned to assist our road officers, and they ended up charging a young male with 9 counts of arson. As well, they continue to prepare and attend court for matters from other years. Our community street crime unit has done a lot of notable work in 2023. The pictures in the report there you'll see kind of shows you one property they're faced with. Although it was in 2022 that the search warrant was executed, they did do some follow-up and whatnot into 2023. And you can see the challenges they faced with the number of outbuildings, debris, and whatnot at this property, that they had to go through everything. But you can see what they were able to seize from that property, including 5 vehicles, 3 snowmobiles, an ATV, a trailer, and several tools. Over $11,000 in controlled substances and almost $90,000 of stolen property. The next one there is trafficking of cocaine in Owen Sound and Grey Bruce area. And they executed some warrants. And again, almost 700 grams of cocaine was seized. The street value of almost $70,000. And then $98,000 in offense-related property. This next one was in Georgian Bluffs. Our street crime unit discovered a property in Georgian Bluffs that was being used as a stash location for stolen property. After some investigation and work by them, they were able to charge 3 people with 52 criminal code offenses. And the amount of the recovered property was $134,000, including 6 vehicles, a motorcycle, ATV, UTV, and 2 trailers. I'm not going to touch on all of these, but you can see they've done a lot of great work. But another notable one is the one in August 2023 in response to the opioid-related occurrences in Grey Bruce area, where we had a number of deaths. Trafficking of fentanyl investigation was initiated. And as a result of that, 3 search warrants were executed. 5 individuals were taken into custody. And they seized 82 grams of purple fentanyl, 27 grams of pink fentanyl, 174 grams of methamphetamine, and a small amount of cocaine, a value of over $50,000. And of note here, 109 grams of fentanyl is equal to 1,090 doses of fentanyl. So potentially over 1,000 overdoses were prevented by that seizure. So that's exceptional work. And then the last one I wanted to touch on was in December, the Canada Border Services Agency seized 2 packages that were shipped from the Netherlands and were destined to Hepworth Post Office. When they inspected those packages, they found 6 kilograms of ketamine concealed in the objects. So our street crime, along with our organized crime bureau and the RCMP, were involved in this investigation. The names on the packages were fictitious and the address was non-existent. And as a result of their work, a male was identified and later arrested for 2 counts of importing ketamine and the possession for the purpose of trafficking. And you'll see the value there is $243,000. And he also had over $14,000 in cash on him at the time of arrest. So again, although these drugs weren't seized in your municipality, they could have been distributed here very easily. Our mobile crisis response team, I know we've spoken to you in the past about the work they do, but we've just had our 1-year anniversary having them in place, and they've been a huge success and such a great resource for our communities. Essentially, they respond to calls for service with the police, allowing people to get the help they need at the time where they are. And it helps to destigmatize mental health and also take away the criminal aspect of it. We're not putting them in handcuffs and taking them to the hospital. So 1,056 mental health related calls, and our MCERT unit responded to 320 live calls. So that means that those people were helped at the time at their house or wherever they were. And it reduced the number of people brought to the hospital by 10% from the previous year. And that number can be even better if we have more staffing. So they're obviously not available 24/7 right now, but we would like to get more funding so that we can bring our staffing up and have them available 24/7 to help people. It helps the people in the community and it helps to keep them away from the hospital and those costs, and also gets the police back on the roads so they can be doing police work out there.
Can I just ask a question there?
Absolutely.
What is involved in getting more funding? I guess where I'm coming at it from is there's something that the police service boards in this area can be doing to help get that funding in place.
So there was a grant through the government that we did apply for that was going to offer more funding. We were not one of the successful places to get it. I was asked about this at another police service board meeting, if they could write a letter to support if we do have future application. I said, absolutely. So we could just reach out for you for support when we do have a possible grant funding that we're applying for, if you'd be interested in supporting.
I would think so. And I know at the county, we've talked about this, the advantage of dealing with those people where they are and where they need to be dealt with, and not taking them into a hospital where they maybe aren't going to get the help they need there. So I think there's definite value in it.
Absolutely. Next is our provincial liaison team, which is a provincial program. However, in Grey Bruce, we implemented our local provincial liaison team member in March of 2023. And Officer Hahn was the successful candidate, and he's been working in our local communities as well as throughout the province to work on facilitating a safe and lawful environment for free speech and peaceful assembly, which is their mandate. One of the notable occurrences where he assisted in your municipality was he assisted Georgian Bluff's bylaw with a property cleanup warrant and with an ongoing neighbor dispute. So great resource for us to be able to use to help solve some of these issues that can be drawn out and contentious. Media, our provincial constable, Krista Linthorne, is our media officer, and she has done 174 media releases and over 300 social media posts last year. And it's a great way for us to show people what we are doing on the roadways and in the communities. And social media, we all know how important that is and how people no longer want to wait for the newspaper to read the news. So our social media presence has really grown as well. You can see that picture there that was quite popular, and that was up in Tobermory. It had a lot of comments and posts. Our auxiliary unit is a wonderful unit. Having worked in other detachments, I'm super impressed with how great the Grey Bruce Detachment Auxiliary Unit is. They run our Safeguard program, which is available to members with local homes or businesses, and they can help owners figure out ways that they can improve their security if they've been a victim of a break and enter or a theft. They also run our Speed Spy program so that they set up cameras where we have been advised of speeding issues, and then we can look at that data and decide if it is actually an issue and then dedicate police resources there. They also helped with some recruiting events, and we held several in the area, including one at the Shallow Lake Arena. They conducted food drives and also assisted at Remembrance Day services and Santa Claus parades, and are happy to assist if your municipality needs assistance with any of those. And the big thing is they've contributed over 3,700 hours of their time, which is all donated time. So really great resource for us to have to help our frontline officers. Our summer program, we created a sergeant position for the summer to help oversee or increase officers and the population that we get in the summer. And we used the MET tool, which I know Inspector Richardson has spoken to you guys about before. It allowed us to deploy members from across the province to our needs in the summer months when we have the increased population. And it was a huge success, and we're going to use it again this summer. Our Marine program is comprised of our frontline members. We have 7 active members that are Marine qualified. So this past summer, they ran it differently than in previous years, where we kept it in-house with just Grey Bruce Detachment rather than partnering with our neighboring detachments. It allowed them to focus more on problem areas, and they had experience and knowledge of local areas that they felt needed to be focused on. So generally, they respond to calls for service and spend time in problem areas and do proactive patrols. And the numbers for this year are outstanding if you compare them to the previous year. So number of vessels checked went from 171 to 997. Charges 1 went up to 17. Warnings 0 to 148. ASD, which is your roadside breathalyzer, went from 0 to 4. And drownings, which is the most significant number, went from 4 to 0. So super proud of our Marine unit and the work they did this summer. And we're going to continue with that same way of doing it for this coming summer. Our Marine program is getting to work already on planning the schedule for next summer. The next section is the statistics for your municipality. So calls for service were up across Grey Bruce, and the increase in Georgian Bluffs was very similar to that of the whole county. Violent crimes are up, but not significantly. Property crimes, there's really nothing significant in the change there. And same with drugs. And I know we've talked before about how we now focus on the more higher end trafficking versus your local possession charges. So that's why the numbers you'll see are not as high as some years. And then your criminal traffic, it is up slightly from last year, but when you look over the 5-year average, it's not really a significant. And then motor vehicle collisions are down from last year as well. The next section there shows all of our speeding, seatbelt, impaired, and distracted driving charges, and that is for all of Grey Bruce, not just your municipality. You'll see the charges are up from 2022. And then the next section talks about more collisions and charges, and again, that is Grey Bruce total. One thing that we're super proud of is the 4 fatal collisions in 2023, down from 15 the previous year. So we're very happy to have that big reduction. And the fatals that we did have were not your traditional fatals. One was the criminal one that I mentioned earlier. One was a medical condition. One was involving a pedestrian, and one was considered an accidental issue that had happened. So not your traditional traffic-related ones. We all know the impacts that fatal collisions can have on families, friends of those involved, as well as community members, police, EMS, fire, all those people. So when we can bring that number down, it's benefit to everybody. And then our traffic management unit, it's a 2-person unit, and the 2 members laid 975 traffic charges and 839 warnings last year, and 13 impaired driving charges and 37 stunt driving. And they also worked with the MTO to run a successful commercial motor vehicle blitz, and that resulted in over 50% of the vehicles checked being placed out of service for various defects. So great job in getting those vehicles that were not safe for the roads off the roads. And then finally, just I think we tell you this all the time, the OPP is recruiting and for all positions. So we're going to continue to hold our local recruitment events. And if you know of anyone who's interested, tell them apply. And that is Detachment Commander's report. Unless you have any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions, Peter?
More or less a comment. I did see the stats on your mobile crisis response team, and it certainly is doing its job well. And I certainly hope that there were 2 areas I think that you were applying for funding. Wasn't the other one the summer program as well, for the additional constables that move into the area, or did I read that wrong?
So we don't apply for funding for that specifically. We just need to get approval from our West Region headquarters to implement this program to get more officers to come and work here.
And that's going to happen again this year, right?
Yes.
And that brings in much needed help in the area, increases in numbers in the summer, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And the other thing I noticed is the values of the items not that are being stolen in the area are certainly going up there. I not to mention any names, but I was speaking to someone the other day in Toronto. They've tried to steal his car for twice were successful. Third time they tried the other night, and you hear media talking about money, federal money. One of my concerns is I am concerned, as I'm sure the police are, that this could move into our area at any time. And because it's a 2-hour drive and away they go with the vehicles. And I'm just wondering, do you have any updates on where the province is with? It doesn't sound like things are getting better any sooner in Toronto right now, but I certainly hope they do. They seem to be addressing it.
So there was, I believe, a grant for that field that was put out. We didn't apply for it here because we didn't have the huge numbers to support it. But I'm sure those places along the 401 corridor did. And so hopefully they are making headway with it. But I can't say for sure the numbers or where they're at with it. Just that I know that it's recognized as a huge issue and that those vehicles are often even being put on, the ships and being shipped out overseas. So definitely a huge problem that they are working at, though.
And I think that's it. I was impressed with your marine numbers as well. They've skyrocketed. They're obviously stopping more people, talking to more people, and unfortunately getting the odd increase in incidents, but that's keeping the water safe. So anyway, that's all I have. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Great report. Okay, so we just have to vote on receiving that report. All in favor? No unfinished business. New business is our verbal update. So I will turn it over to staff for that.
Thank you, Chair Carlton. And briefly, just a quick update as to where we are on the transition to the Grey Bruce Joint Detachment Board, i.e. the larger structure that is going to take place of the individual municipal boards. So as this board will recall, we received direction from the province in December that as of April 1st, it was the expectation that the new board structures be ready to go and that the legislation, being the Community Safety and Policing Act, would be proclaimed on the same date, being April 1st. Since that time, myself and the collective clerks and other representatives throughout the detachment community have been meeting on a regular basis to discuss the nuances of the transition, being administration of the board, appointment of individuals to the board, and overall what the board structure looks like in moving from individualized municipal boards. We've called ourselves the implementation team, so you'll hear me say that a couple times today. That is a subgroup within the larger detachment community of myself, Marla behind me, and a few other municipal reps that have gathered to put our minds towards the finer details of creation of a new board, which essentially is creation of a new council that needs their own policies, their own admin support, their own remuneration policies, everything under the sun that you can think of. So we have been turning our minds towards that. In recognizing we are now in March, the clock is ticking. Thus far, we have successfully appointed elected representatives from each participating community to the board. Our next step is appointment of community appointees. There was an open application process that closed on February 26th. We received 19 applications, which was a very positive turnout, in my opinion. I was happy to see those numbers. It is my anticipation in polling collective availability of those elected or appointed members that we will host a meeting on March 12th to determine which community appointee applications will move forward to the council process. The same has been communicated to all of the applicants, being we are meeting to consider the applications, and we will keep every applicant abreast of our progress. With that being said, we have had communication from our appointee at the Chippewas of Nawash, being that the original appointee to the board does not have the resources at this time to commit to serving on said board. So they are reevaluating their participation. That's not correct. They are not reevaluating their participation. They're reevaluating their appointee. So they will not be participating in the selection committee process. However, are still indicative that they would like to continue their participation on the board. They just need a little bit longer to determine who that appointee is going to be. To that extent, following selection of the community appointees, we will then generate an additional report including updates and appointment information to all of the collective councils for their enactment and for their consideration. With that being said, I am recommending that we stay with our existing police services board schedule as it remains, given that we have not yet received clear direction on training expectations for every board member, nor have we received clear direction as to provincial appointees on the board. All of the members will be required to attend the training that will be mandatory through the province. I still don't know what that looks like. So it is my understanding that the board cannot meet in the absence of that training. So it has been my recommendation that everyone keep their police services boards until we have a clear direction as to where we're moving. And in sum, that's an update. Still a lot of unknowns, I understand, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I have a question as it applies to First Nations. Were there public appointees coming from First Nations the same as everywhere else?
No, so just to quickly break down those 19 applications, I can give you an idea of what that looks like. So again, we did receive 19 applications, none of which came from Meaford, Chatsworth, Saugeen First Nation, or the Chippewas of Nawash.
My concern would be that if we had people applying from both First Nations to be on that larger board and we don't have a representative there to give feedback, it's not appropriate for the rest of us to be voting on them. But if none of them have applied, then I guess that lets us off the hook there.
I did make the offer to the representative of Chippewas of Nawash to appoint an alternate in their absence, or just participate in this one meeting to assist in selection of the community members. They do not have the resources at this time to do so, but are collectively discussing the path forward within their council.
Okay, I had another question. It just popped right back out of my head. Okay.
Quick question. What are the four municipalities that have council representation on? But not the four. What are the municipalities that have the representation on that board?
So
I know Georgian
Collect-
Bluffs.
Right. Collectively, there's 9 participating communities, 2 of which are First Nations communities, being the Saugeen First Nation and Chippewas of Nawash. For your municipal representatives, you have Georgian Bluffs, Meaford, Chatsworth, Grey Highlands, Southgate, South Bruce Peninsula, and Northern Bruce Peninsula. So to answer and address a previous question, just to highlight it at this point in the agenda, I do envision that this police services board, being that of Georgian Bluffs, will meet again after that April 1st date, depending on if between now being March 5th and April 1st, we get clear direction as to what the provincial appointment to the board will look like and what the training responsibilities will be. But we will not be formalizing a dissolution here today. We will postpone that pending further direction from the province.
Okay. That makes perfect sense. So if that is all we have, then if there's no further business, I will now call for adjournment of this meeting. Can I have a move? We are adjourned. Oh, sorry, Rayburn.
Through you, Chair Carlton, just for clarity, technically the next Georgian Bluffs Police Services Board meeting, as regularly scheduled, would be May 7th, 2024 at 1 p.m. So pending all the outcomes as noted by Brittany, just for clarity there.
Okay. Good. Thank you. And thank you everyone for being here.